And we're on.
Okay.
Okay, so Ms. McWilson, if you can answer the questions, please, if you can read them first.
Okay. Do you think that the government should be paying part of the rising fuel price, or do you think the government should be using the same money on new energy alternative research? Well, I would say first and foremost that I don't believe the government, even as a Democrat, should be subsidizing rising fuel prices. I believe that the government should be better regulating the oil industry and our trade agreements, particularly in the Middle East and in Africa, particularly Nigeria, obviously in Venezuela, to look at ways that we can better regulate that resource. Internally, while I don't necessarily believe in drilling, I do think we can look at alternative fuel, energy alternatives, and research so that we're not using our oil reserves to that nature. Now, there has also been some research done by ExxonMobil and BP and some of the other big oil companies that I think we should be looking at and better working with our private industry partners who have the technology, who have the money to do some of this research and provide more tax incentives to them to do energy alternative research as opposed to necessarily using government funding and resources to, again, repeat what energy and oil companies are looking at doing. So that's the first one. I do think that it's high. I think it would be better regulated, but I think 10 years ago on 60 Minutes there was a special done on how to have a car running for over a month on a particular fuel, on one fill up of gas, filling up their tank once a month, and about the ability to do that. It was a great special. Actually, my father taped it. I watched it with him, and I can tell you that at that time, my dad and I looked at each other and said, "Not going to happen." And we have had Texas, God love them, in power for the last several years, and they have one of the oil energy capitals of the world, oil and gas. And I think, unfortunately, that has inhibited some of the alternative research. But we don't need to start from scratch. We have great things out there and should be utilizing some of the current research and looking at ways to do that and better work with our partners in the East and in the South on how we can trade other technologies for oil. That's question one. Question two, do you think that the solution for global warming is in economic measures, or do we need a cultural change in our lifestyles to face the new reality in world energetic platform? I'm assuming that question kind of means how do we get at solving kind of the global warming issue. First, you have to believe that there's a global warming issue, and I do. And do I think it's in economic measures? I think global warming is far more complex than looking at economic measures. We're so far past where we should be, particularly in the last 20 years. We have quadrupled kind of what had happened in the prior 50 years. So at that level of pace, it's beyond economics. We would need a cultural change. Both Martin Luther King and Mandela said that it takes 20 years to change a cultural concept. And if you believe that, then we need to hurry up and start. That's one. But first we need to acknowledge that there is such a thing as global warming. I think that is actually the first step, and that probably is cultural, but it can also be legislative. And working here on the Hill, I believe our first step is to legislate in that area, recognizing there is actually a problem before we can get to some solutions-based. There are some solutions out there. Some will cost in dollars, but some more in research dollars, which is, I think, important. Looking at, again, what our nonprofit and private industries are saying, many colleges and outside NGOs have done research in this area, have the data on this area, and we need to be better utilizing our international forum for that and playing better use of the Cato agreements and some of the other larger forums, also maybe including that in the Doha round. That has been an issue under trade of how much the United States is pushing in kind of environmental measures. I don't think we're the only ones. EU is also doing it, and I think we have to get out there on the forefront. As people see now in the Beijing Olympics with the level of smog that they're talking about, that we may continue to say that it is not a problem and may not like to regulate inside of trade agreements, but clearly we can see with one of our largest trading partners and one of the largest exporters in the world that there is indeed a problem. So as we continue to grow, we need to look at that. Also, in terms of some of the land mass that we're taking, that's another issue for global warming, and I think that needs to be looked at, and it ties into question 1 on alternative fuels. Number 3, do you think that the United States is setting a good precedent for developing countries for how to handle the rising demand for energy resources? As an American, I always like to think that the United States is at the forefront of kind of energy resource usage, and especially as being one of the largest energy consumers in the world. Obviously, we need to have better resources, better alternative, better research, better data on looking at energy and the proper use of energy. Sadly, I think we are not necessarily the lead. Now, some of that is because we are the largest consumer, and it is hard to change around your habit of consumption. It takes a large change. It takes, again, going back to the kind of cultural, economic, the norms of that taking place, and believing that there truly is a problem, which many Americans do not believe, because many of our legislators and, unfortunately, currently our president doesn't believe that it has reached a crisis level. So, I think that the United States is best at the discussion level, because I think we have some of the best resources, some of the best researchers, some of the best scientists, some of the best schools, and some of the best programs in looking at this area. I also think our partners in the East, as well as in the South, have had great dialogues in this area. Brazil has had a number of fantastic forums in this area, and has also been looking at including them in some of their trade agreements after the rubber issue that happened in their country, and seeing what that did environmentally to their country, although they did later win that suit. So I would say that we could do a better job than we do, but I would say be gentle with us, because we have a large number of people. We have a huge consumption of energy. We have a lot more reserves than people also know about. And we are using some alternative measures and have been willing to put that technology out there. Most of our energy and oil companies are multinational, so they are in these other countries doing that same research, which kind of makes the other countries sometimes look at the forefront. But often when you check, they have been schooled and trained in the United States and or Europe, which also has pretty tight, even tighter than ours, energy rules and alternative research rules on energy. So I would say we're not number 1, but I think we're getting there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McWilson. Thank you.